So yesterday I was showing how to make the base of this, and I did it a variety of different ways. I'm going to do it one kind of quote-unquote final way. I'm going to do 3 center point rectangles. So that's kind of my middle one. And then I'm going to do a right side over here. When I place the center of it, I'm going to have it aligned to the origin. Notice there's a horizontal constraint likely being applied. And I'm going to go in. I'm going to touch this. I'm not clicking. I'm touching it. And then as I go up, see how it's automatically constrained? I'm going to show that again. I'm placing the center here. Notice as soon as I move my cursor there, you can see that orange dotted line connecting it, and the horizontal constraints automatically being applied to lock it in line with the origin. But then when I do the second click, if I just immediately go up here, notice there's no snap to automatically apply a constraint to line this up with the rectangle. But if I touch this, I'm not clicking, I just touch it with my cursor and then go up, now there's a snap to constraint. Okay? Very, very useful. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Touch, then go up. Okay? What I like about this sketch as opposed to this one is that this one has things overlapping. So if I ever try to extrude with that sketch, I'd have to click on each of these individually, which is really, really annoying. Okay? That's kind of the downside of having that overlap. On the other hand, 50, what's it got? 58, 20, 15, 11. Okay. On the other hand, these, I would only have to do 3 clicks instead of 5 because there's no overlap. Okay. I'm going to dimension this now. I believe we had 58, 20, 11, 15, and then I just got to do some equal constraints that I haven't done yet. So I'll make this equal to this one, in size, height equal to this one, and it's all black. So this is, in my opinion, the best way to do it. I think it strikes a compromise between doing it with all lines and doing it with the rectangles the way I did before. You don't have overlap. You'll only have to do 3 clicks to select them. I think this is the best way to do it. So I'm going to actually delete my first sketch. And I'm going to rename this one the bottom section. I am not done with it, but I kind of wanted to go over 3 different ways of making that same thing, pros and cons of each. You'll notice looking at it that there's rounded corners, fillets. We see those, yes, say yeah? And if you look very astutely, the ones on the outside are larger than the ones on the inside. By outside, I'm referring to like this one. Does seem to be a little bit larger than the ones on the inside. By inside, I mean these. Okay? So, I'm going to do 2 sets of 4 here. Outer one. Maybe 3. Somewhere around 3 millimeters. So I'm going to do a fillet. Click. 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 I'm done clicking to select. I do a one final click off to tell the computer that those are 3. Now you might notice, I'm going to undo that. Everything is black, which means it's fully constrained. But then the moment I add those fillets, now it suddenly is blue. It's almost like interfering with those corners. Yeah. Cause some issues. We see that? Yes or yeah? So you do you. But I have found a lot of times that it is easier to do fillets as a feature than it is to do them in the sketch. However, that does introduce more things in your table of contents over here on the left side. One of the issues with sketch fillets is exactly what just happened here. You do equal constraints or dimensions, and it starts to break down after you apply the fillets. You'll notice that my equal constraint is no longer there. I made this equal to this, and this equal to this. And that's because I equalize lines that no longer exist. They've been broken up by those fillets. So my recommendation is to not do the fillets in the sketch, but to do them as features. If you do them in the sketch, and you can do that, you're just going to have to redo your constraints or dimensions to make it fully constrained, which is fully black. Okay, you've been warned. So I'm going to not do them in the sketch. All right. I'm going to extrude this and then apply the fillets as features. 3 clicks, that's not too bad. How tall is this? You should be able to figure that out. That's not that hard of a measurement to make. Looks like it's a little bit more than 10. Doesn't quite round up to 11, so we go with 10. So this here is the bottom section. And now, instead of doing fillets in a sketch, I'm going to do them as a feature. Okay? By doing them as a feature, what I'm effectively accomplishing is I'm making it more resilient. I don't have to worry about sketches getting kind of corrupted and constraints and dimensions falling apart. So I'm going to click on these 4 corners. Notice I'm clicking on a corner, so a line. And I'm going to change this to 3. And I'm done. Those 4, you can see them all orange. They're orange or highlighted orange. Those 4 were all a little bit larger than the 4 inner ones. So I got to do them separate. I got to do them separate because they're different sizes. So I'll rename these the outer bottom fillets. And then the next that I do, I'm going to call the inner bottom fillet. So I'm going to click on the fillet thing again. And it looks like you click on this line here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe those are only 2 millimeters. I don't know. They're smaller. 2, 1.5, something like that. And I'll call these the inner bottom fillets. Looking at the corners here, it does seem that these corners like this, it does seem that they are a little bit rounded, like just a hair. So I'm going to fillet those. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe call those 1 millimeter. And I have basically made my bottom part like the base of my connector. Questions? All right. The next thing I got to do is I got to draw the upper half. So I'm going to make a sketch on this, and I'm going to draw the upper half on there. Okay? And it's a little bit smaller. A little bit smaller. So if you kind of look astutely in this area right here, you kind of see that inside there, those slopes, they're kind of angled, right? They're sloped. And if you look really carefully, it does seem to be flat here and this half, and then it starts to slope inward. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a very similar sketch. There. So watch what I did there to get that lined up. Touch, go over. Notice that's aligning it with both of those points. See the double constraints, the horizontal and vertical being applied. Okay. So I can place that. Show that again. Click the center, origin, place it. Touch the line, then work your way over. You got to touch that line, stay on that line. If it doesn't work, you can go touch that. So that's like the bottom of the upper section. And then I'm going to have a similar situation on this layer as I had the one below it. When you do these rectangles on the sides, be very careful. I do want to snap to it being aligned with this, but I don't want to accidentally force it to be at this point here or the midpoint of this line. Make sure you're not applying any constraint, but it being lined up with this. So be very, very careful. Take care, girl. Be very, 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 very careful. Okay. So I'm actually just going barely above this point, which is not looking correct, but just trust. We can change the dimension later. I'm trying to avoid auto-constraining it to things I don't want auto-constrained. That's what I'm trying to avoid right here. So I'm started here. It's lined up with the origin. You can see that. And then I touch this line. I go up just a little bit, just so it's aligned with that. No other constraints applied. Okay? And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Touch. Go up just a little bit. And then I can dimension this. Looks like it's 20 by 17. I got equals constraints I can apply to equal top to top, side to side. I'm not done. I think I want to fillet some stuff still. But we can do that tomorrow. We can do that tomorrow.